Hey everyone, it's Charlie Morgan here, and in today's video we're going to talk about how to use systems to achieve predictable, consistent outcomes in your life. You can use systems specifically for your personal life, you can use them for your work life, and you can install them into pretty much any part of your life to achieve predictability. And this is really important because if you're an entrepreneur or someone who wants to succeed and do big things, then it's imperative that you have predictability and consistency everywhere in your life to avoid big ups and downs and big spikes of emotion or output. And so in this video, what I'm going to do is explain, first of all, what a system actually is, what it looks like and how it functions. And this might be something you've seen before. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually explain the step-by-step process of building a system for anything. And I'm going to give you some examples of systems that I've built in my personal life, some of which are going to seem obsessive or autistic or weird, but ones that make me feel like I can achieve predictability. The whole point of a system, really, at least in your personal life or sometimes also in your business life, is to remove the need for you to think. And so the way that we become more successful is by being able to allocate more mental capacity to problems, okay? So becoming successful or building a business is all about solving problems. And the speed and effectiveness to solution, i.e. the speed and effectiveness of how good you are at solving problems, depends entirely upon how much of your brain you can allocate and dedicate to these problems. And so what you want to do is you want to find ways to routinely, predictably, consistently solve the same problems over and over again, but have that outsourced to a system, okay? So think about it like this. If you want to go from your house to your office, that's a problem that you need to solve. And in order for you to get there, you probably are going to use a car, or maybe you'll use your city's transport network. The car and the transport network are effectively systems, right? They are like machines, although they are physical machines. They are systems, and what they do is they remove the need for you to exert energy to walk to work or run to work or whatever, that makes sense. And so systems are really helpful, and we can use, they exist in so many different forms. Like, for example, everything down to, let's say that you want to make some brownies for whatever the hell, I don't know what kind of brownies you want to make, but let's say that you're making nice PG-13 brownies. And if you want to do that, then you need to find a way to do, let's say you want to make brownies every week because it's your hobby, you love baking and you love brownies, you want to make them for your family. Well, what you'll do without realizing it is create a system for the baking of these brownies where you'll know exactly what ingredients to use, you'll use the same process, the same temperature, the same thing. And you know, it's kind of like you'll have the same output and you'll listen to that output to slightly change it. So anyway, all of that to say, systems are everywhere. You build them a lot of the time without realizing, but if you are aware of, there's my whiteboard broken. This thing just came off, but we'll keep going. If you are aware of how systems function and how to build them, you'll be able to make them more effective and therefore save yourself a lot more time, a lot more energy, and ultimately just be able to have more mental capacity to dedicate to problems that exist in your business or in your life. Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about the first principles of a system, and we're going to visualize the abstractions so that you can actually deduce what the hell is a system and what are the first principles or core components of every single system. So pretty much every single system, with perhaps a couple of exceptions, but they're very rare, on the planet look like this, okay? So we have a couple of boxes, a triangle, an arrow, another box here, and a sun like this, and a flow. So this looks a little bit weird, but I'll give it some labels. So here, and I'll put this in purple, we have inputs. Here we have process. Here we have outputs, and then here we have feedback, and then here we have environment. So basically, the way that any system functions is we always start really with the inputs. Now, sometimes you can start with the outputs because if you're looking to build a system, the reason you're building that system is because you know what you want or you know what you want to achieve. And so often what you need to do is you need to look at the output of the thing, like i.e. I want to make a brownie or I want to get to work. You know what your goal is, you know what your objective is. And from that, you reverse engineer what you need to put in and how you need to process that to get that. But for the sake of thinking this thing through in linear flow, which is going to make a lot more sense to you right now, we'll start with the inputs. So inputs are basically like raw materials, okay? So they don't have to be physical materials, they can be anything. But for example, let's think about the example of, let's say you are a car manufacturer, and let's say you manufacture electric cars, and therefore you need to find a way to manufacture electric motors for your vehicles en masse globally for your international car company. Well, the inputs of your battery manufacturing process are going to be things like, I'm all over the place today, guys. I'm dropping pens, I'm dropping my whiteboard. Left, right, it's been a minute since I made a whiteboard video, so my motor skills are not quite within practice. So you're going to need things like lithium, you're going to need things like cobalt, you could probably need things like steel, you might need rubber. And so the inputs are basically, it's like a collection of all raw materials required to produce the output. And again, if you're making a system for cooking a brownie or something, then you're going to need sugar and chocolate and flour and whatever the hell what else goes into a brownie, I actually don't know. In the same way, that let's say that you're a student, and let's say that let's say you've got an exam coming up, and you want to get A star on the exam, right? Well, what you can do is you can build a system to do that. And what would that look like? You'd have a system for studying, right? And so the input of the studying system will be all the information that you've learned that you need to memorize or critically understand to then give answers to the questions in the exam that ultimately give you the grade. And so if you're a student and you want to get an A star or the best grade, then the output is the grade, the process is the examination, and the input is the information. But again, like, systems exist on many levels. And so you might have the macro system, which is the revision or studying to the grade. But if you're talking about a studying system specifically, then the inputs is going to be all the information that you've learned that you need to remember. The process is going to be you using specific memory tasks and specific flashcards or whatever studying mechanism you want to use. And then the output is going to be you remembering the input, if that makes sense. What we have down here is we have feedback. And feedback is crucial because what feedback basically is once you receive an output as a result of processing the inputs, you kind of get to look at this thing and decide if it's close to what you actually wanted to achieve or not. Okay, and if, let's just like the brownie, for example, right? So let's say that you are cooking a brownie, big, massive brownie. We're not gonna go down the hash brownie route. It's not funny at all, actually, to be honest. And you're like, okay, I've made this brownie and it's too salty, or it's too sweet, or it's overcooked, or it's undercooked. It doesn't taste like this, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't taste palatable. Then what you would do is you use that feedback to adjust the inputs and also the processes. So this feedback loop here often will determine what inputs you use next time, and it will also often determine what processes that you use as well. And so if you're studying and you study the information, you use your processes to study it, try and remember it, and then let's say the output is that you just can't remember specific things and you can remember other things, well, maybe you use different processes to remember different things, and therefore you're going to use the processes that work more and the processes that didn't work less. That makes sense? So it's really as simple as this. And then a crucial thing to understand about all systems is they all operate in an environment. And the environment is simply the circumstances surrounding the system itself. And so if this is a system for studying, then the environment in which you're operating is going to be the room that you're in. It could be your bedroom, it could be your university library. It's also going to be to do with the people around you. It's going to be to do with what you've eaten and how hydrated you are, because your body's part of that environment. And so often the function of a system can be heavily dictated by the environment that it's in. Because if you can have the best teachers, right, for study, they can teach you the best things, you can have the best teachers in the world and the best information to remember in the world, you can have the best processes to study that information, and you can have a really strong way to try and remember it. But if you're doing this in a really chaotic, like, let's say you're trying to study in the gulag, well, you're probably not going to remember much because you're going to be starving and forced to do manual labor. So you get my point? Like, the environment is just as important as everything else when it comes to this, which is why as entrepreneurs, or as an entrepreneur myself, I take such good care of my environments and endeavor to create the best environment that's conducive to the function of the processes, to the inputs to produce the outputs that I want. And so that's basically how a system works, and that's how to think in systems. And so there's lots of different ways that you can apply this into your life and into your business. So for example, one thing that I do consistently is make YouTube videos for this channel. And I've been consistent on YouTube. Remember, the key word here is consistency. My uploads are predictable, they're reliable. I've never missed an upload in the last 4 years of doing YouTube. I've never missed a week where I haven't uploaded a video. And a lot of people, they ask me like, well, how the hell are you that consistent? How do you manage to maintain so much consistency in your YouTube channel, even though it doesn't necessarily always grow exponentially? The main thing is I'm always here, I'm always showing up for my subscribers, right? Even when I'm exhausted, or even when I'm sick, even when I'm tired, like no matter what, I'll always upload. And the reason that I'm so consistent is because I have a system that I follow routinely. And I developed this thing intentionally. And so what this basically means is, first of all, let's talk about the YouTube thing, 'cause it's a good example. What's the input of a YouTube video? That's quite a critical question, and it's not an easy one to answer, because it seems that sometimes like YouTube videos just come out of thin air and people just make them, and sometimes they go viral and sometimes they don't. So what the hell's the input? Well, everything has an input, because it's impossible to produce an output without an input. And really, the input in the case of YouTube is the idea of the video, okay? And so, you know, the idea is the thing that you come up with and think, oh, I'd like to make a video about that. And so, you know, what I have is I have a system within a system, so to speak, because I have a system to produce ideas for YouTube videos. And what that basically looks like is me, everything that I learn or everything that I do or everything that I reflect on or experience is filtered through my mind as, can I turn this into a YouTube video? And what that allows me to do is constantly come up with ideas, and I'm never out of ideas, which means that this machine is constantly fed. And so the input is the idea. And you need to build a system to generate the ideas consistently, which is just revolves around basically like the true input of YouTube is all the information that I receive in from my sensory and imaginary experiences, all synthesized in my brain. And then everything that, not all the information, but most of the information I receive that seems critical in any way to business or life is then filtered through my brain as the question, like as I comprehended, the question comes up in my mind, can I turn this into a YouTube video? And if the answer is yes, then it goes in a spreadsheet. And I've got like 100 YouTube ideas that I can pull from at any time, which means that I'm never inconsistent because I have so many inputs. And so if you're trying to build a system in your business, let's say, for example, for cold outreach, let's say you want to build a cold email system or a cold calling system or a cold DM system or a content system, the only way to achieve true consistency is to have consistent inputs. And the same thing is true, like, this is why, for example, I eat the same thing every day. I drink the same amount of water every day. I sleep the same amount every single day. Like all of my, at least most of the time, all of my biological inputs, my body, are very consistent and happen at the same time every day with the same frequency, with the same intensity. And what that means is that my body knows what's happening and when, my hormones balance equally, my emotions balance equally, and because my inputs are consistent, and my outputs are as well. In terms of my energy levels, I don't have massive spikes or massive fatigues or anything like that. So let's carry on this thing of YouTube. So you have the idea for the YouTube video, and then the process is actually basically script, record, edit, distribute. So the process is for actually making a YouTube video and turning the idea into a video are pretty straightforward. So first of all, script. Now, I don't actually script my videos in any way, shape or form. I never have. I probably should. Maybe it would be more conducive to getting better YouTube results, but to be quite frank, I haven't got the time because I'm more focused on my company. The YouTube videos are kind of just this weird like journal almost that bring us lots of attention and are quite helpful. So what a lot of people would do, they're building a process for making YouTube consistent, is script the video, or at least know what direction they want to take the video in so it's not chaotic. Then record the video. So sit down like I am now with a microphone attached to my chest and on my t-shirt, and then record the video. And then edit, so edit the video. I don't edit my videos because we don't make mistakes over here. Come on, baby. And then distribute. So that's where you upload the video. And then basically the output really of scripting, recording, editing, and distributing is attention. You know, again, like the reason that I'm making these videos is not to get subscribers or not to have some number by my name. It's basically attention, and it's also brand. So the outputs that I'm looking to facilitate and give assent to through the creation of these videos is getting attention from people in my niche who might be able to buy from me, or at least will be able to in the future, and building a personal brand that is strong enough to warrant connection with the market. And basically this is kind of cool because what happens is when I make a video like this one, I'm able to see in real time how much attention that video has garnered from the market, and then also what sort of like effect it's had on my personal brand insofar as like what people think. Although to be honest, I don't really look at the brand as much as the attention thing. And then what you can do is you can then be like, well, based on how much attention this video got and how many views it got and the feedback from people, you know, on like, oh, this isn't like you at all, or this is like you then use that feedback to create new ideas. And also you use that feedback to change your scripting, recording, editing, or distribution processes. So for example, if I make this video and I get loads of people in the comments saying, I love the whiteboard videos, bring them back, then what that will mean is I can read that feedback directly. Usually I don't read the comments because something like 0.5% of people actually comment. So it's not really representation. It's not representative. You want to use the objective measures, not the subjective measures, right? Unless I got like a 50% comment ratio, I'm probably not going to let, you know, those opinions matter that much. Not that they don't matter if you comment, but you get my point. So we use that feedback, and then it's like, oh, well, people seem to really like the video on systems. So people seem to like it when I explain abstract concepts and how to achieve this result of consistency and reliability and predictability in your life through the sort of abstraction on a whiteboard without any editing. People seem to like that. So I then take that feedback and I'm like, I'll create more of these ideas. And, you know, I'll think more about how I can expand on this idea, or perhaps look at it from a different angle to create more videos about it. And the whole time that this is going on, the whole time that we're looping and looping and looping here as a system, I'm operating in an environment. And so in my environment, I'm in my office right now. One example I can give you. So I live in London, in the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, darling. That sounds so pretentious to say. But anyway, I live here in West London, in the cool part, if I like it, it's great. And that was a big decision for my environment. It's more expensive to live here, but it's very relaxed, it's very calm, there's no crime, well, there's a little bit, but this part of London is very chill. And that allows me to be very chill, right? Another example, the apartment that I have, the flat that I have, one of the most important things to me before moving in was that this apartment has air conditioning. So it's August right now, and it's a little bit hot. You know, we've got like 30-degree weather at the moment, but I've got air conditioning. And what that means is that I can sit down and make these videos and record long-form educational videos without being boiling, without being too cold, or without sweating or getting irate or annoyed because I'm too hot. And so what we see in the UK is a lot of people have these unconscious loops or systems for productivity, for work, but the second that it gets too hot, the entire thing goes out the window. Or the second it gets too cold, the entire thing goes out the window. And so systems are, the predictability of a system can only work insofar as the environment is predictable. And so this is why you want to keep things streamlined and straightforward in your environment and try and keep things like, I know that not everyone can have air conditioning in the UK, but when I was moving here, I was like, it's an absolute must because being able to dictate that temperature is crucial, especially for my sleep and stuff. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is give you an example of a system that I've created that is going to seem horrifically, well, let's just say that if you do this, okay, let me explain the system. So if you're dating someone or you're in a relationship with someone, then what you need to do to maintain that relationship and to keep it healthy and alive is spend quality time with that person. And so I've started seeing someone recently, and the problem that I faced was, how do I sustain this relationship in a way that is predictable, reliable, and consistent with me having to not think about it? And I know that kind of defeats the point of a relationship, but the person I'm seeing is very understanding of this, and they definitely have diagnosed me with autism for the reason you're about to see exactly what the hell I'm talking about here. But all of this to say, I'm like, if I want to have a healthy relationship in my life with someone of the opposite sex, then I need to spend time with them. And basically what I did is I created a system to do that. So it can happen predictably, consistently, reliably, and I can show up for them without having to actively think about how I'm going to do that or when I'm going to do it. And so what I did is I realized that this person that I'm seeing really likes to go for dinner and they like to go for restaurants. And so basically what we have is every week at the same time, at the same day, is we do a date night. And she will suggest restaurants because she always sends me restaurants that she likes the look of. To just WhatsApp me like, oh, I like the look of this one, or I saw this on TikTok or whatever the hell. And, you know, she'll send them and then I've got a spreadsheet, and every time she sends a restaurant that she likes the look of, it's like a YouTube video idea. Like it gets put into the spreadsheet. And then basically what I will do is I will book out these restaurants like for this specific day, like sometimes weeks in advance, so that it's kind of like in the same way that I'm showing up by never missing a YouTube upload, I'm never going to miss a date night unless I'm like otherwise incapacitated, like if I've got the shits or something, then she probably wouldn't want to go for dinner with me, right? And so what this allows me to do is it allows me to meet this need that I have in my life, which is quality time with a partner, consistently without having to think about it. Because what a lot of people do in relationships is like, you know, what they'll do is they'll be like, oh, we haven't been on a date in like a month and you're kind of pissed off at me and you're kind of annoyed. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go and ask you what you want to eat tonight. And then you spend like an hour going back and forth undecided on what to eat. And then it's like, oh shit, this is chaos. So what instead I do is I go to the person that I'm seeing and I just say, hey, you know, when you see somewhere that you like and you like the look of, just tell me and I'll make a list of those things and book them out and then we'll go to them. And then here's the cool thing. It's not actually cool at all. If you do this with your girlfriend, she's going to think that you have severe autism. But if this is what I got to do to keep myself like consistent. So what we then did, or what I did, is I built a spreadsheet. I don't know if you can see this, but it's called the Restaurant Rater. And so basically what we do, and this is how I've been able to systemize dating, because it is like, a lot of people think that this is weird, and yeah, it is kind of weird, objectively. But when you've got like an 8-figure company to run, and you're trying to get that to multi-8 figures, and you're trying to build stuff that has 9-figure potential, and you've got a mastermind to run, and a course to run, and you've also got 101 other things to do in your life, a lot of little things that might seem little to you, but seem massive to other people that love you, can get overlooked. And it's your responsibility to build these consistencies to stop them from like creating problems. So what we did, or what I did specifically, she had nothing to do with this, is I built this thing called the Restaurant Rater. And what this basically allows us to do is, I've got on the second sheet here, all the restaurants that my partner likes the look of. And she'll just, because she did this, where like what she'd do is she'd just send me like random restaurants with no intention, by the way, of me booking them. Because she likes food a lot and she's like a big foodie. She's like, oh, this looks really cool. So now I was like, oh, this is great, because like you're doing the IDA, you're doing the input part of this for me. All I've got to do is build a process to process these inputs into outputs. The output here is a happy relationship, and it's someone feeling like their needs are being consistently met. So I built this bad boy. And on the Restaurant Rater, what I decided to do was basically create a mechanism for feedback so that I can figure out what restaurants this person likes. And this is all from a place of love, by the way. I can figure out what this person likes so that we can start finding more restaurants like that one, so we can ultimately go to restaurants and explore cuisine that is similar to what we already like, in the same way that you'd look at YouTube videos, right? And so what you can see here on this screen is we have the name of the restaurant here, the date that we visited it, and the category of cuisine. And then basically we rate the restaurant on a scale of 1 to 10 based on 9 different parameters that come under the quality of the food, the quality of the service, and the quality of the vibe. And so what we do is we give a score out of 10 for all of these different parameters, which then is averaged out to give a total score, which then discerns how good the restaurant is. And what that allows me to do is I can look at her, I've got my ratings on there and we've got her ratings, then we collate them together. And what that allows me to do is I then get to figure out what she likes and what she doesn't like. And if you do this every week for a year, then suddenly you've got this thing dialed in for the next like 50, 60 years if you're going to spend the rest of your life with this person, right? And so I like that idea because it's just a way of systemizing a relationship. Now, I am well aware that relationships are not supposed to be these machined, systematic things. They're not. That's not how it's supposed to be. However, when you think about like, look, let me put it to you like this. Think about like a sport, or think about it like a hobby, or something you want to get really good at outside of work. The only way that you get good at that thing outside of work is by having a schedule, by having a routine where you show up and you do the same thing. Let's say you want to get good at like golf, and you have a golf lesson on Thursday at 8 p.m. every week. If you do that every week at 8 p.m. for a year, then you're going to get pretty good at golf, much better than you otherwise would have been if you didn't go. And so in all the other aspects of our life, when it comes to everything else, whether it's health or hobbies or sports, we do this routinely. But for some reason, when it comes to relationships, we are significantly less willing to make systems. And so, basically, anytime, and this is kind of the lesson of this video, anytime that there is something in my life that requires me to consistently think or exert mental or physical energy in pursuit of an objective, I will always put a system and create a system, no matter what it is. I've done this for what I eat, I've done it for my sleeping habits, I've done it for what I wear, I've done it for my social life, I've done it for any sports that I do, I've done it for the gym, and I've done it for everything at work. I've done it for hiring, I've done it for firing, I've done it for legal practices, I've done it for accounting. Everything in my life is systemized. I've done it for showering, brushing my teeth, like the morning routine thing, the evening routine thing, like cooking, cleaning, like everything's been completely systemized, either outsourced or systemized, right? And what that means is I can then put all of my capacity into creating insane products for my customers. Because that's kind of the thing that I basically have the most leverage with in my business is the quality of my products, okay? And what I'm trying to optimize for here in my life is, even by like actively not having to think about restaurants or date nights or planning things, like it basically allows me to remove the need to think about that and know there's a system in place for that. And yes, I still gotta like do the whole like book the restaurant thing, and then like the date has to happen, but that doesn't matter because that's something that is you can do naturally. It's not like I'm going to turn up to all of our dates with like a specific like line of questions and stuff like that. No, there's a time and a place for systems, and that's not one of them. But yeah, this is basically how you create tons of cognitive capacity to solve very difficult problems. And again, at the start of the video, like I said, the speed at which you solve these problems and the speed at which you can overcome these issues in your life is the speed at which you can create systems to deal with other things that require your capacity. So I have these to basically ensure that, like, that thing that people used to talk about that was never really neurologically or scientifically accurate, where people were like, oh, you only use like 10% of your brain. And then you have that film Limitless, where the guy takes like the pill and he's like suddenly using like 100% of his brain and he's really smart. It's not quite like that, but the point is that, like, if you imagine this is your brain, your lovely smooth brain, and right now, like, this is kind of like mental capacity 101. So right now, let's say that you're doing loads of shit and you don't really have any systems for anything. Like, what you might find is, and then you try and start a business, right? So this is kind of how it works. So let's say that this is free and this is busy. So in your brain right now, if you're trying to start a company, then maybe what's happened is you have 20% of your brain free, i.e. like 20% of your memory, like how we use like RAM in a computer, can be allocated to the company. But then 80% of your brain is spent on you making the same decisions every day. So like, what am I going to wear today? Or what am I going to eat today? Or I need to book this date thing, where am I going to do this? Or I need to deal with this person, how am I going to do this? Or when should I get my hair cut? Like, these are all trivial decisions that can be outsourced or otherwise really just honestly systemized, like I've just explained there. Like, oh, what YouTube video am I going to make this week? Or what am I going to do this week? Or like, what am I going to do tomorrow? Or like, what golf course am I going to go to? Or all these decisions, like, they come at a cost. And so what we're looking to do by creating systems and by building routines into our lives with inputs, process, and outputs is, just start freeing up more and more of this space. And the more systems you create, the more capacity that you have that's free, the better you're going to be at solving problems and actually being able to work through complicated issues that move you on a trajectory towards your goal. So that's the whole point of systems, is it's not a question of trying to be as autistic as humanly possible. It's a question of trying to create as much mental capacity as possible so that you can put as much as you can into work. So yeah, that's systems for you. Talking of systems, by the way, if you're a marketing agency owner or a coach or consultant, and you need a system to get more clients, you can click a link in the description because we can help you do that. But I don't really care if you do or not. It's just a shameless plug. All right, bye.